watching Big Brain Energy.
Yo, Jason, I've got $5 to spend. Can I have a Moro bar, please? Yeah, dude, they're $3 each. Oh, slay, that's cheaper than I thought. That's called your consumer surplus. If at this point you think, yo, Jason, what the heck are you talking about? You're in the right place. In this video, we're going to cover exactly what is meant by producer and consumer surplus. This is the second video in our series on the market graph, where we cover everything you need to know for AS 913199 3.1, demonstrate understanding of the efficiency of market equilibrium. Let's get into it. When we say surplus in economics, we mean the extra satisfaction gained from buying or selling something. Basically, when you buy something, you're happy about that, right? Or if you sell something, woo, you get some moolah, you receive surplus. The consumer surplus is the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and what they actually pay for a good or service. This is a definition which you'll need to memorize for the exam. Let's say you want to buy a Moro bar. You walk into the dairy thinking, okay, I'm willing to spend like $5 on a Moro bar, no more. You walk over to the chocolate aisle and discover, oh, hey, it only costs $3. How good, right? It's cheaper than you thought. The amount that it was cheaper by, $2, is your consumer surplus. It's the happiness that you get when you buy something cheaper than you thought. If it's way cheaper than you thought, then you'd have a bigger consumer surplus. If it's only a little bit cheaper than what you're willing to pay, then it's a smaller consumer surplus. Let's take a look at this on the graph. The equilibrium price is the amount that the Moro bar actually costs, in this case $3. The demand curve shows the maximum price that a person is willing to pay for their Moro bar. So, the consumer surplus is the difference between the price they're willing to pay and the price they actually pay. So it's this blue triangle here. Now let's look at the flip side, the producer. We have to pretend here that we are the seller. We own the dairy shop and we're selling Moro bars. The producer surplus is the difference between what a producer is willing to sell a good or service for and what they actually sell it for. You'll have to memorize this definition as well for the exam. Let's break it down. Let's say that you sell a Moro bar for $3, but let's say that the lowest price you would accept is actually only $1. You only need $1 to make a profit on that Moro bar. But you sell it for more than you expected. Yay, you're happy about that, right? You sell something for $2 more than the lowest price you were willing to sell it for. That happiness you get is your producer surplus. On the graph, the producer sells the Moro bar for the equilibrium price, which is $3, but they were willing to sell it for just $1. We know this because of the supply curve. It shows the price the producers are willing to sell something for. So it's the difference between the price they are willing to sell for and actually sell for. The producer surplus is hence this yellowy, orangey triangle here. In the exam, they might ask you to calculate the actual value of the consumer or producer surplus. Let's see how you do this. They will give you numbers on the graph. All you need to do is use these numbers to calculate the area of the triangle. To calculate the area of a triangle, you use a formula half times base times height. The base of the triangle is how far out it goes on the quantity axis, and the height is how far up it goes on the price axis. In this example, the base is 4, since it goes out to 4 on the quantity axis. The height is going to be 6 minus 3. Careful here, the height isn't just 6, it's going to be 6 minus 3, since it only covers that part of the price axis. Okay, now we plug those numbers into the formula. So half times 4 times 3, and that equals 6. By the way, when we say half, you can type this into your calculator as 0.5 if it's easier. It's the same thing. So, based on this information, the total consumer surplus for all 4 Moro bars to get brought from this dairy is $6. Imagine 4 people come in and buy 4 Moro bars, add up each one's consumer surplus, and you'll get $6. Okay, let's do the same thing for producer surplus. Same story here, it's just a triangle, so we use our formula to find the area of the triangle. In this case, the base, how far out it goes along the quantity axis, is 4. And the height, how far up it goes on the price axis, is 3. So half times 4 times 3 equals $6. So the total producer surplus is $6. Each of those 4 Moro bars that get sold adds up to a surplus for the producer with the value of $6. Here's a complete summary of all you need to know. Consumer surplus is the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and what they actually pay for a good or service. Producer surplus is the difference between what a producer is willing to sell for and actually sell for. Here are the consumer and producer surpluses together on the graph. The consumer surplus is always at the top, hitting the demand curve, and the producer surplus is always on the bottom, hitting the supply curve. To calculate the value of consumer or producer surplus on a graph with numbers, use the formula area of a triangle equals half times base times height. Alright, let's put this knowledge into practice with some questions. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. What is the definition of consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and what they actually pay for a good or service. What is the definition of producer surplus? Producer surplus is the difference between what a producer is willing to sell for and what they actually sell a good or service for. Illustrate the consumer surplus on this graph. Here's the answer. It is the triangle between the demand curve and the equilibrium price. Illustrate the producer surplus on this graph. It is the triangle between the supply curve and the equilibrium price. It's your sister's birthday. You are willing to spend $20 on a cake. No more, after all, she's only your sibling. When you go to the shop, you find that it is only $15. What is your consumer surplus? In this case, you're willing to pay $20, but you only pay $15. So the difference between what you're willing to pay and actually pay is $5. Don't tell her you pocketed that extra money. Suppose you are selling lemonades. You are willing to sell each lemonade for $2 minimum. You test the water to see if you can actually sell them for $5 each. Your neighbour comes along and pays the $5. Calculate your producer surplus. You sell the lemonade for $5 and you're willing to sell it for just $2, so the difference between what you're willing to sell for and actually sell for is $3. Calculate the value of the producer surplus based on the information in this graph. We'll use the formula area of a triangle equals half times base times height. In this case, the base is 4 and the height is 6. So half times 4 times 6 equals $12. So the producer surplus is $12. Calculate the value of the consumer surplus based on the information in this graph. Again, we use the formula area of a triangle equals half times base times height. In this case, the base is 8 and the height is the difference between 15 and 30, so 30 minus 15 is 15. So half times 8 times 15 equals $60. So the consumer surplus is $60. Alright, that's everything for our second video in this series. Next we'll be looking at how you shift the demand and supply curves. The internet is saturated with American-based content and there's very little economic videos based in New Zealand. We would really appreciate your help to keep this channel going by hitting the like button and subscribing. It really does make a difference in the algorithm. And as always, let us know if you have any questions in the comments or if you have any suggestions on what we should cover next. See you next video for more big brain energy.